Good morning. You're looking live at the White House today. And President Biden is getting ready to have a news conference with the new Chancellor of Germany, Scholz. This is Scholz's first visit to the White House. And he's specifically here to talk about the Ukraine crisis and to shore up his position on Germany's posture towards this crisis, because Germany has been less than a full partner in this, as so far their only commitment is to send 500 military helmets to the Ukraine, while the United States and other NATO allies have been doing much more. Now, when I say much more, I mean the United States. The United States has been sending several hundred troops to Europe to shore up the allies' positions around the borders of Ukraine and Russia, and as well as weapons and other logistics. The Germans are taking more of a hands-off approach. So this is an important news conference for the German Chancellor. To assure Washington, especially, and to assure the NATO allies that the Germans are on board. Now, as I talked about in last night's video, the Germans have a bigger energy position in this than the United States does, obviously. About 40% of their energy of natural gas comes out of Russia. And they also have the big Russian pipeline that's in the works there. Well, it's the European pipeline that's going to bring even more energy to Germany and some of the European partners. Without this pipeline, which the United States says they'll crush that plan, then there's going to be big problems there if Russia invades. Biden has already said he'll crush that plan to build and finish this pipeline if the Russians invade Ukraine. That would be one of the punishments dished out. Credit to DW News for airing this broadcast for everybody. But this is how you learn really what is going on. If you watch enough news, you watch enough of these live briefings, you get an idea of what the true situation is in this tension with the Ukraine. So we're standing by. We've been standing by the last few minutes. I'm sure at this point, the two teams, Biden and Scholz, are huddled together to make sure they're putting out a joint message, so that there's no big disparaging remarks here. You've already seen how Putin has walked back Macron from France's remarks. In fact, Putin is quoted as saying it was just pure torture sitting there with Macron. Now, the French President Macron has been hopscotching around Europe, meeting with leaders, and he obviously has a personal interest. One is that his new election is coming up this fall. So he wants to look like a man of strength. He would love to be the man who can call himself as the peacemaker. France obviously is not a major player from a military standpoint beyond the defense of their own country, which we found out in World War II that obviously the French folded up like a weak tent and just surrendered to the Germans back in World War II. So they're not a major player as like the U.S. or the UK or even Canada. I would rank them down the list as a NATO ally. They are more of a pacifist type country. So at this point, we're still waiting for this news conference to take place. There's no big updates in in the Ukraine. One thing I suggest to everybody, and you're going to have to, you'll do your own research on this if you have the interest, and that research is to get in to some independent videos on YouTube and some independent research articles about what has been happening in the eastern part of Ukraine. Now, the eastern part of Ukraine is what borders Russia. This is where the separatist movement, the Russian-backed separatist movement, has been taking place for the past 7 to 8 years. And it's a brutal, brutal conflict. Now, here we go with the conference.
The White House, Michaela. It looks like we've got the president and the chancellor coming in.
Oh, thank you.
Let's take a listen.
There we go.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start by thanking Chancellor Scholz for making his visit to Washington. We had an opportunity to have a very productive meeting. I think our staffs wondered whether we were going to let them in at all. We spent the first half hour more talking together, and it's been a very, very useful meeting. One of the things that struck me was the shared values, and that shape how each of us approaches leadership. Among them, the foundational commitment to the dignity of workers and the need to treat all people with respect. So I enjoyed speaking with you, Olaf, and I know working together will continue to strengthen and deepen our alliance and the extensive partnership between Germany and the United States. Of course, at the top of our agenda today was our united approach to deterring Russia's threats against Ukraine and the long-standing principles of rule-based international order. That's what we spent most of our time talking about. Germany and the United States, together with our allies and partners, are working closely together to pursue diplomatic resolutions of this situation. And diplomacy is the very best.
We're going to switch this off for now. I wanted to, he's just giving his opening remarks. Biden is giving his opening remarks. And then the chancellor will give opening remarks. And then the real action starts when the question and answers take place. That's where you really learn the most, when they're having to answer point blank from questions. So at this point, I'm gonna drop back in here for a few minutes, and then we're gonna step away. So what I suggest is, if you have continuing interest here, is go ahead and pull this up on one of your national news channels, or you can find it on YouTube. It'll be under the live settings, and you know, tune in, especially for the question and answer, which should start here probably in the next 10 minutes. Stay tuned to my channel here, William B. Strong. We'll keep you updated on this situation and bring you other topics of interest that I definitely have some opinions on. And I look forward to your comments, any questions you have. Thanks for your subscription and your viewership.
Of Germany for hosting additional U.S. forces and for the long-standing hospitality to our women and men in uniform. We also discussed the challenges we're facing to the international order from China, along with Russia and other competitors that are pursuing more illiberal futures. We've agreed that Germany and the United States will continue to work together to ensure that the rules and principles governing emerging technologies are geared to advance freedom of opportunity, not repression or authoritarianism. We also reaffirmed our commitment to completing the work of integrating the Western Balkans into the European institutions, and to finally realize a Europe that is whole, free, and at peace. With Germany holding the presidency of the G7, we also talked about how that forum can harness the world's leading democracies to advance a robust agenda of global challenges, from ending the pandemic to addressing climate change. So the bottom line is this: whether as allies in NATO, partners through the European Union, as leaders of the G7 and G20, or through our strong bilateral relationship, Germany and the United States are close friends and reliable partners, and we can count on one another. There is no issue of global importance where Germany and the United States are now working together, strength to strength, and applying and amplifying our efforts together. So I want to thank you all for making the journey today, and I look forward to being the first of many opportunities we can spend together beginning this meeting and throughout the rest of the year and the rest of our terms. So thank you. Welcome. Floor is yours.
Schönen Dank.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon from my side as well. I'm very grateful that we have the opportunity to talk in much detail today, and that I was able to make my first official visit here, and that we also could talk about the important questions that we're dealing with today. We are in a very difficult situation, and it is a good thing that Joe and I were able to discuss what we need to do in this difficult context. Of course, there is a military threat in Ukraine, against Ukraine, and we cannot remain silent on that. We see the number of Russian troops along the Ukrainian border, and that is a serious threat to European security. And this is why it is important that we act together, that we stand together, and that we do what is necessary together. It is important that all allies, the US and Germany, the transatlantic partnership between the US and Europe, NATO, say the same thing, speak with one voice, and do things together. And we made it very clear, if there was a military aggression against Ukraine, this will entail severe consequences that we agreed upon together, severe sanctions that we have worked on together. So there will be a high price for Russia. This is a very clear message. Everybody has understood it, and I think this message has been made clear again and again, so that even Russia has understood the message now. What is important is that we also intensively worked on preparing possible sanctions together.
You can tell he's speaking about the joint message, as I referred to earlier, and sanctions. They're not talking about any military interventions with troops.
Needed, and we will do that. At the same time, it is important to use all diplomatic means we have, and I'm very glad about your great willingness to move forward together, especially the bilateral talks between the US and Russia. And of course, the talks that we have agreed upon within the NATO-Russia format. This is also important.
This is the new Chancellor of Germany, Mr. Scholz.
So many years there have not been any talks in this format, so it is a good sign that they are happening now. Of course, we have controversial debates there, but it is important that we talk. And the same is true for the OSCE, where we need to discuss about security in Europe. This is also a progress, as tiresome as it may be, and we have not yet reached any very substantial conclusions yet, but it is good to see that this format plays a role now. And the same is true for the talks between Ukraine, Russia, France, and Germany, the Normandy format. We have this format, but we haven't been able to really use it in a productive way over the last few years. So now we have come back to that format. We're having tough discussions in that format, and that shows that there are ways that will lead us out of this difficult situation. And this dual-track approach of clear announcements with regard to sanctions that will be taken if there is a military aggression, and at the same time keeping all dialogue formats open. I think this is the most promising strategy one can have, and that is
one of the things that the NATO allies, and he's talking about it now, is to keep a joint message moving forward, a joint message and a joint plan in their attack on Russia if it comes to sanctions.
And we also therefore have a special mandate to contribute to cohesion worldwide. And part of this is that we continue to do everything we can to make sure that the citizens of the world can be vaccinated, not only in our rich countries, but also in countries where people would love to have.
Now he's moved on to COVID-19 vaccinations worldwide.
Importance worldwide. The same is true for fighting man-made climate change, a big topic that keeps us all busy, even though it is obvious that only a global solution can be successful because climate is a global thing. It doesn't stop at national borders. As an industrialized nations, we have an important contribution to make. We have technological opportunities, economic opportunities, and have to use them in order to prepare a situation where we and others can enjoy prosperity without harming the climate. This is the big challenge that we see, and that is of great.
Okay, at this point, we're going to step away. And if you have continuing interest in the broadcast, I suggest you go to one of your national channels where you'll pick up the question and answer phase here, which should begin anytime. Again, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you back on our journey and our channel very, very soon.
Atlantic Partnership and the fact that those countries can rely on each other.
Well, thank you very much. We'll now take it.